Once upon a time, there was a woman. The most beautiful and amazing woman in all the world.
No! You just touched her. Watch.
No, please, don't do that. They're only children. Stop it!
One day, she was attacked by a monster. But then a girl came running up and killed it. And the woman said, "Melanie! You are my special girl, and I'll never let you go."
The Girl with All the Gifts is based on a young adult novel by Mike Carey, and it's a modern zombie apocalypse movie, sort of. But amid all the blood and guts, there beats a real heart at the center of this movie. Gemma Arterton plays Helen, the teacher on a mission to humanize those carnivorous little kids. And right now, she's here in Studio Q to talk about the film. Gemma, I said a little bit about what the film is about, but without giving too much away, can you explain, in this particular movie, A Zombie is Not a Zombie, what makes these kids special?
Without giving too much away, these kids are the next generation of zombies, or hungries, that's what we call them in this film. And so these children are, they are very, very dangerous, but they're also very intelligent, capable of real human emotion, capable of love, empathy. And so I think for Mike Carey, the writer, that was the sort of basis. He wanted to kind of extend the zombie the rules of zombies. So it's really a film about humanity, ironically. It's about survival of the fittest and who has the right to, and it's about evolution and who has the right to live and who has the right to die. And it's very, very interesting. I'm not usually one for zombie movies. So this script It spoke to me on a kind of human level, and that's what attracted me to it.
For people listening, when they go to see the movie, the opening scene in that classroom is quite visually disturbing because you see all these kids strapped in the classroom. As an actor, what was it like to step out in front of that group of kids?
It was that day was my first day on set, and the kids had already been in these chairs, and I'd met Senya, who plays the lead character, and knew that she was up for it, but the rest of the kids, they loved doing it. I mean,
really?
Yeah, you wouldn't believe that when you see it, but yeah, they were really up for it. But it is a very arresting image. And I mean, seeing kids, all of the kids they shaved their heads. So they all look like, you can't tell if they're boys or girls. I literally had major problems with that. So and they're going, she's a he and he's a she. So they all look like, you can't tell. And yeah, when you see kids in all uniformly dressed, sexless kind of, and strapped in, it does make you think of, concentration camps. And it's very, very disturbing. Yeah, so it's not an easy image.
And the main character, Melanie, who is the girl with all the gifts, as the movie is titled, she too, at the beginning, you're not sure if she's a boy or a girl, but your character, it's obvious from the beginning, has a very close connection with her. Did you have that kind of a connection off screen with the actress who is a 12-year-old actor from London, Senya
Nanua?
Nanua.
Yeah, I did actually. We did extensive casting looking for this part. She's in practically every scene. It's a huge, huge part, and I think we auditioned over 600 girls for this part, and she was the last actress that we met. And I insisted on doing chemistry reads with the 10 actresses that all brilliant and all completely different. But Senya really was the one that stood out in terms of her wit. She was very sharp, obviously very intelligent, and she sort of had this sort of sass. I don't know. There was something kind of like a leader. You could imagine her being a leader. She has something quite sort of strong, even though she's very frail, very thin and slight. And anyway, I just immediately loved her as well because she's very, very funny, very playful. So a lot of it for me was about that relationship and being there for her and making her feel like she could lean on me and she could trust me. And so, and it was very, very natural.
And she had a sass, but she wasn't a brat. It was a very unique place that came from, like you said, this natural leader. And your roles throughout your career, we see you in this movie. You've played all kinds of real strong kind of kick-butt characters, but you also do all this theater work. And that's a big arc from the action movies to the theater work. What is it for this movie that fit into that spectrum for you that made you think, yeah, this is for me?
I just loved how she I just felt like she could be me in that situation. A woman that is, thrust into this completely out of the ordinary situation that's just trying to survive. And so she does so, she has to carry a gun, but she doesn't agree with that, and it doesn't sit well with her, and she kind of carries it like a handbag,
Yeah.
And she's very sort of warm and loving, but trying to kind of fend for herself. So there's this real, necessity to survive and fight. But it's not sort of necessarily something that she would choose to do, and that was for me interesting. Yeah.
And you've said before that in some of these larger action movies like Quantum of Solace, you don't get to express yourself as much. Did you feel you got the chance to do that in this movie?
Yeah, I think that femininity is one of the most powerful weapons in the world, actually. That's why people try and cover it up.
Yes, sister, you're talking to the choir here.
Right?
Sure.
So I think that the fact that she's so maternal and loving is actually more powerful than some of the other characters in the film. And that, for me, is an important thing to express.
And, you, in your movie, The Disappearance of Alice Creed, you spent most of it chained in a bed. In The Girl with All the Gifts, you're in peril a lot throughout the movie. Is that a coincidence? Do you like to play characters that are up against it?
You know what? I don't usually analyse my choices, and it is true. I do often play characters that are up against it. I think I like being in a state of emergency in my work. Then I feel like I'm really doing my work. Although, funnily enough, I have 2 other films that are in the festival here that couldn't be more different. And one of them is probably the gentlest, calmest character that I've played. She doesn't really have a state of emergency. So, and if she does, she's sort of more subdued rather than kind of combative. It's funny that you've noticed that.
And you're living in Paris now, where I understand you're getting into French films.
I am doing some French films. One of them, which was in the festival, called Orpheline. I love French cinema. I learnt French for a film that was here 2 years ago called Gemma. And since then, I've sort of been trying to just flex my muscles in that.
Did you have any French as a young girl?
No.
You learned it just for a movie?
No, I'm English. We don't tend to learn other languages.
Wow. So for all those adults that say we can't learn it later on.
Oh, yeah, you definitely can. I vouch for that. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, do you see The Girl with All the Gifts as pure fiction, or is there a piece of that makes you think, oh, we could get there?
You know that the Ophiocordyceps unilateralis, which is the strain of fungus which is causing the infection, is an actual fungus that exists. And Mike Carey, being the geek that he is, the writer, read about this, and I think it took over a colony of ants in South America, and they did actually sprout into a different mutant ant. Anyway, so this is possible. I quite like the fact that it's possible. I mean, what I like about this film is that it's sort of, it feels, we can relate to the surroundings, we can relate to the humanity of it, and And anyway, there's a huge other aspect of this film, which is about the social comment of, what's going on at the moment in the UK with after Brexit and immigration, and it just feels so important to talk about, even if it's in this capacity, in a zombie capacity, it just sort of feels right. I guess the zombie metaphor means something, and that's why we keep coming back to it, about humans eating humans, and
It's also great because I think when you do it through a movie like that, more people might hear that message. More people might start to have that subconscious thought.
Yeah, and I think this film is thought-provoking. It doesn't, if you want an out-and-out zombie movie, this is going to challenge that audience and make you think deeper about what it is, what it's about, and the fact that it's set in this London that's sort of dilapidated and forgotten, and the nature's starting to take it back. It's about nature versus humanity as well.
That was really interesting, I thought, throughout the whole film, is that you could see that even though humanity was in peril, the earth itself was starting to heal already. It was looking better. But there's such an influence of zombie movies, novels, TV shows, or dystopian, any kind of like end of the world type premise. What do you think is it about humanity that we're so obsessed right now with that concept of it all coming to an end?
I think it's kind of because that's how it feels right now. I mean, with what's going on in the United States, with what's happening in Europe, in the Middle East, it sort of feels like we're in a state of, it's a real important time in humankind, and what's going to happen, and we all don't know, and everyone's battling each other, and so I think it's coming from somewhere, and it does feel a bit apocalyptic. I mean, if you think about even the natural disasters that keep happening,
so true.
The world is kind of screaming out at the moment,
and this movie does a wonderful job at making you think about that. Thank you so much for dropping by.
You're welcome. Thank you.